Hello, thanks for tuning in to check out this week's sermon at Lifeline Denton. My name is Matt Liberio, and I'm the pastor here at Lifeline. I hope that this message today ministers to you and that the Lord reveals new things to you as you tune in and listen to what the Holy Spirit has to say to you. If you haven't had a chance, I want to personally invite you to be here with us on a Sunday morning. Our services are at 10:30, and we would love to meet you face to face. Enjoy the sermon. All right, we're going to be continuing in this series that we started last week. If you weren't here, it'll be online if you want to go look that up. I'm going to tell you about my neighbor. Her name is Anne, and her gig, her job, so to speak, is to restore furniture. So she goes to these consignments, and she goes to estate sales and garage sales, and she does online kind of marketplace shopping, Craigslist, that sort of stuff. And she identifies furniture that is well-built, of high value, or at least it was at one point, but is in disrepair. She looks for things that are functional, that the drawers open and it's got all four legs and that sort of thing, but it might have blemishes or damage. Maybe it's got some signs of water or aging. It's just pieces peeled off. And she does a pretty remarkable job. She can go in there and she can make it look brand new again. She's got all these different techniques and skills and crafts that she does to implement to restore furniture. And so what she does is that she has the ability to make these things look brand new again, even though they're decades old. She restores even broken metal. She has the ability to make that look brand new again. She sands it. She refinishes it. She takes the unbalanced legs. You ever have furniture that wobbles a little bit? Isn't that the most annoying thing? If you're on a hard floor, she can balance those legs until it's more than functional again. It's renewed. What Anne's craft demonstrates is the mindset of a redeemer. This idea of redeemer is one that we often exclusively associate with our spiritual experiences. But Anne demonstrates this in a practical way, that something can be taken as is and not left as is, but restoration be brought to it, and it can be redeemed and made into something new once again. Jesus is a redeemer, folks. He's a good teacher, yes. He speaks prophetically, indeed. There's a lot of things we can say are true about Jesus, but we can't neglect the importance of recognizing him as a redeemer, that he makes blemished, damaged, and worn things valuable and wonderful again. Maybe that's you here today, and you feel that you have something about your life has been damaged, that there are blemishes that cannot be overcome, that you're imbalanced, that you're worn down, and this is the way things are, that you are best to just be functional. But Jesus says, I am a redeemer in your life, and I take things that are damaged, that are blemished, that are worn, that are unbalanced, and I make them like new again. Jesus is a redeemer for all things, and not excluding the seasons of our life. He brings redemption to seasons in our life. And that is the series that we're in. We're in this series, A Time for Everything, that really centers on the first 8 verses of Ecclesiastes 3. And to obtain a proper view of this passage, it's essential that we understand the redeeming nature of Jesus. The redeeming nature of Jesus, that no matter what we're going through, Christ can cause us to become content. So I want you to do something with me just so that we can posture our minds and our attitudes. Can you say this with me? That Jesus redeems all my seasons. Jesus redeems all my seasons. All, yes. I see how you said that with all caps. That was good. It's important to me that we have a common understanding moving forward so that no one gets lost as we move through these. I'm going to talk about some concepts, and we might have different working definitions of some of these concepts. So I'm going to define some things before we look into this passage of Scripture. What I say this is called is shared meaning. So I'm going to give you some shared meaning moments here. The first shared meaning idea is the idea of redemption. Redemption actually means to buy something back or to recover. In application, we look really in the scriptures, the initial application is to regain property after a foreclosure. So say somebody was unable to pay on their debt and their lender, so to speak, seized their property. They could redeem their property. They could buy it back and possess it once again and bring it back into their household if they were able to come up with the funds or the resources to purchase it back. But this also has another application in regard to reputation. A person's reputation can be restored through redemption. And we see this a lot in like movie arcs or comics or books, that we have a character who makes mistakes throughout the course of the story, or maybe they're introduced to the story as a villain of some kind. At the end of the story, we can see that their character could be redeemed or brought back into good standing or in a good light, and their reputation could be restored. So this is our idea of what redemption is, and that we see both of these applications played out and how Jesus brings redemption to our lives, but also to our season. Jesus has a role in our life for a way back for our wayward journeys. And I think we have to recognize that we are all a wayward people. Sometimes we think we come into a church, a lot of times people will say, I came from a good background. I came from good parents and a good upbringing, so I was never really wayward. That's incorrect. We're all a wayward people. We were born into a wayward way of life. We were all rebellious in nature. It doesn't matter how healthy your upbringing was, folks. We don't compare each other one to another to say who needs to be more redeemed than the other. The thing is, we're all in need to be restored and redeemed. We're born into a sinful world with sinful desires and sinful ways, and we have to be brought back out of our wayward attitudes and posture. And the only way we can do that is because Jesus brings us by bringing redemption. So redemption is this first word I want to talk about. The second, I want to define this word contentment. Contentment means to be at peace within one's circumstances. Now, this is a different word than the word complacent. We have to differentiate these two things. A lot of times these words are used interchangeably. To be complacent means to be indifferent, to lack ambition, to not have any kind of motivation, to be satisfied with the status quo. But contentment means to be at peace with our circumstance. Contentment is a positive thing. Complacent is often a negative thing. So contentment, we want to make sure we're on the same page with that so that we can go into this next word and understand what this last word means, and that is resentment. To be resentful is to be embittered within one's circumstances. So contentment is to be at peace within one's circumstances, where resentment is to be embittered within one's circumstances. And we're going to juxtapose these two ideas of contentment and resentment and see how it plays into our seasons. And that's the idea I want to explore with you today. That every season invites a response of resentment or contentment. Every season does. No matter what season you're in. Last week, we talked through lots of different kinds of seasons, and we have a choice on how we're going to respond. Are we going to be resentful in that season, embittered, angry, entitled, or are we going to be content? Are we going to be at peace? Are we going to find satisfaction knowing where we are is okay with the Lord? Last week we examined Ecclesiastes 3:1-8, line by line, but today I want to examine an application, a declarative statement by the Apostle Paul, who speaks overtly about what it looks like to be content within his season. So we're going to look at Philippians 4. You can go ahead and make your way there and turn there. If you're unfamiliar with Philippians, it is a letter from the Apostle Paul to the church in Philippi. And he is writing to the Philippians letters of encouragement, instruction, correction. He does this really across all of his letters. It's his intent is to provide kind of counsel, instruction, encouragement. And really there's tones of affection within all of his writings as well. We look in chapter 1. We're not going to look at this today, but if you want to go look back in chapter 1, we'll learn that Paul's actually in prison for his faith. He is literally in prison because of the disruption that he's bringing to the community and society. He is not making a lot of fans with the reigning government and leadership, and he's creating a lot of unrest, even though he is being fruitful, really because he's being fruitful in his efforts to bring Jesus to the world. And so we see that Paul begins this letter recognizing that he is in chains, that he is imprisoned, and that gives us some context to understand the significance of his words in chapter 4, what we'll be looking at today. In this passage, Paul is thanking the Philippians for a gift that they sent. They received an offering, and they sent it on to provide for him. And as we read, I want you to do two things for me. I want you to look for Paul's circumstances and any language that he uses to describe the state of his circumstances. And then I also want you to pay attention to the response that he gives in the season based on those circumstances. We're going to start in verse 10 of chapter 4. This is what Paul says. He says, "How I praise the Lord that you are concerned about me again. I know that you have always been concerned for me, but you didn't have the chance to help me. Not that I was ever in need, for I have learned how to be content with whatever I have. I know how to live on almost nothing or with everything. I have learned the secret of living in every situation, whether it's with a full stomach or empty, with plenty or with little. For I can do everything through Christ who gives me strength. Even so, you have done well to share with me in my present difficulty." You have done well with me to share in my present difficulty. Verse 11, Paul says, I have learned to be content with whatever I have. I have learned to be content. I don't know about you folks. That's a very freeing statement for me. That there's not anything wrong with me when I feel discontent. In fact, that's normal to feel discontent with my circumstances. Paul says contentment is learned. You see this? It is a skill. It is something that we develop, that we craft, that we discover. That contentment is something that doesn't happen naturally. It's not something that we're born into. No one ever says, I was just born and I've always just been content in all circumstances, no matter what my season. Has anybody ever said that to you? I doubt it. It's uncommon for people to just be pleased and at peace all the time. Our natural state is to find some kind of dissatisfaction or to want more, to seek more. How interesting it is that Paul, this great church planter, that even for him, that contentment wasn't natural for him, that it was developed. How encouraging that is for us, that there isn't some lofty standard that we have to measure ourselves to and say, well, he figured it out. How come I can't figure it out? Apparently, there's a way of doing it right, and I'm not doing it. Even Paul had to learn how to be content. He had to learn how to be at peace with his circumstances. Paul gives us some examples in this next statement. He says, I've learned to live on nothing, and I've learned to live on everything. I've learned how to live on a full stomach or in an empty stomach. I've learned how to live with plenty or with little. He says, I've seen both ends of the spectrum. I've had everything that I've ever needed, and I've had nothing. I've been on top of the world, and I've been in prison. And I've learned to have contentment no matter what the season I'm in. And then he makes this resolution statement in verse 13. He says, it is because of Christ. It is because of Christ that he gives me strength, that he is the cause of my contentment, that he is the source of this peace that I possess. Paul makes a life-altering statement in verse 13. And I'm not saying a life-altering statement for him. His life's already been altered. It's a life-altering statement for us. He makes a statement that alters our lives. Your life should be altered by this. A statement that disrupts our own resentment. One that gives us a window of hope that life doesn't have to be so bitter and unpleasant, folks. Maybe you're here today and you just feel like you're tired of being angry all the time. or holding grudges, or being dissatisfied, or you're feeling the weight of living an entitled life. But there's hope today, recognizing that it doesn't have to be so bitter and unpleasant. That Paul makes this statement that it is Christ who gives us strength. And this is news that lets us off the hook, that we don't have to fake a smile anymore. You ever been taught to fake it till you make it? You've heard that before? You've been instructed to do that? There's certain applications to that where we would say that it could be considered a positive thing. I'm not going to weigh in on that statement a whole lot today, but what I do want to say is that sometimes we're just pretending that we're content all the time. And that's often more exhausting than just being discontent. It's just easier to be angry than to pretend like we're not. Now we're angry and we're pretending like we're not, and so it's like this double-layered resentment, bitterness thing that's happening within us. It is Christ who gives us strength. We can learn a different way by Jesus who gives us peace. Most importantly, the thing that Paul's statement in verse 13 shows us is that contentment is produced not by our season, but by our redemption. It is the redemption of Jesus that brings contentment into our life. When we encounter Jesus, then that resentment that exists naturally is replaced by contentment that is produced supernaturally. It is not your season's job to make you content, folks. You hear me? We often think, I just got to get to the next season, then I'll be happy. Then I'll be satisfied. If I can just finish school and get a job, then my life can be content. I can just get a paycheck. If I can just get a promotion. Once I just get married, when I just get kids, then I'll be content. Then I can just retire, and I don't have to worry about dealing with this boss anymore. Life will be better then, and so on. And then you're 95 years old, and you've just been resentful for 95 years, waiting for the next season, because we've expected the season to provide contentment for us, and instead of letting Jesus provide the contentment for us in the season. We have to take the responsibility off of the season of life that we're in to provide us contentment. Instead, look to Jesus to provide contentment. It's the nature of Christ to be content, and it is in the nature of Christ to bring redemption to our difficult circumstances. The truth is, it is easy to be resentful, even in pleasant circumstances. Even in good circumstances, even when we have fair weather, even when our sports team's doing well, even when things are going well at work and we get free bonus and vacation time, we can still find something to gripe about, can't we? There's still somebody in our life who annoys us. There's still traffic. There's still inflation. There's still things that are, it's not hard to find something to gripe about, is it? Even in pleasant moments, even pleasant seasons, we can find something to complain about. I challenge you. It's not a hard challenge. Go find something to complain about. I bet it's not going to take you much to figure out something to complain about, does it? You can rise to the occasion. No. The real challenge is for us to put that off. No one thinks you're special because you find something to complain about in pleasant circumstances, folks. Wow, she's really special. Things are going really well for her, and she's still angry. No one's going to say that. But that's what we find ourselves in a situation where we can find something to gripe about. Because resentment is natural. Contentment is supernatural. It comes from Jesus. Part of this is due to the reality that life is unpredictable. If we could just predict everything, if we had control over everything, then things would be a lot more peaceful, wouldn't they? If I knew what tomorrow would bring, I knew what the future held, if I could just control the future with all my might, things could be easier for me, and I wouldn't have to be so angry all the time. You ever thought that way? But life is unpredictable. Plans fail. People fail. We fail. Another part is that we often allow resentful voices to shape our thoughts, don't we? We invite critical, resentful, bitter voices in our life. social media, it's not hard to find, is there? There's somebody complaining all the time on social media about something. Podcasts sometimes can just be a rant fest, people ranting about things. I'll tell you that political news, there's just a lot of griping about things on political news. And there's a lot of opportunity. You know that political news, I don't know if you know this, it's on all the time. You can just leave it on, and there's somebody complaining about something all the time. And you could just leave it on. Even our loved ones that we care about, that we let into our life, they could just angry about something all the time. But we love them, so we can't throw them out of our life. But here's the challenging thing. When we compound the social media and the chatter and the news and all the different outlets, what is that going to do in our hearts? What does that do to our soul, our state of contentment? We're saying, I'm going to feed that into my life instead of letting Jesus give me strength to bring redemption into my life so that I can be in contentment, have peace. Let me tell you something that's been challenging for me. Maybe it'll be challenging for you. Maybe it won't be. Maybe you figured this out years ago. Complaining is contrary to Christ. It is contrary to the nature of Christ. When we complain, what we are saying without saying it is, I'm dissatisfied with what you've done, with what you are doing, and what you want to do in my life. I have an objection. I have an appeal. And it's good for us to have difficult circumstances and take those things to the Lord and say, God, I want more, and I believe that you want more for me. But to complain with an entitled, bitter attitude all the time, that's a statement about where Jesus resides in our lives. Complaining is incompatible with redemption, folks. Complaining is incompatible with redemption. I want you to think about this illustration I've been thinking about. We are in springtime, right? In North Texas, it's springtime. It might not be in other parts of the country. I think some parts of the country have like 6 winters, like we have 6 summers. Right? Like they get that false spring, and then winter comes back. We get false fall, and then summer. Anyway, you know what I'm saying. So right now, we're in like a legitimate spring. Things are in bloom. There's budding on all the trees. And I want you to think about the 4 earth seasons, right? We have the sequence that happens. Depending on how long you've been alive, you've experienced these multiple times, right? It happens, they just come in a circle every year. So I want you to think about which of the seasons is the good season. Which is the good season? Is it summer? Is it spring? Is it fall? Is winter the good season? I'm not talking about the best season. I'm just talking about the good one. Which one's the good one and which one's the bad one? This is confusing, isn't it? That's my point. Do you know that there's a meaningful impact that results from all 4 seasons? There's a good thing that happens. Let's just talk about the trees. We all love trees. That's why we have 75 of them on the property. I want you to consider trees. In spring, the season that we're in right now, reproduction is beginning. The trees will bud, and then they will flower, and it will begin the pollination process so that the reproduction can happen so that the trees can start producing seeds. And so we see this season, it's the largest growth season that takes place. It's the most beautiful season. We saw the buds and the flowers that happen. But there's a function that happens in springtime that does not happen in summer, fall, or winter. But if you move into the summer, we see that this is when we have maximum sunlight. The days are longest, which means that the trees have maximum photosynthesis. They can produce the most amount of food, which is good because they're going to produce all these acorns. And they're countless acorns. And you're going to clean up the acorns, and they're going to have more acorns. The trees are going to be like, gotcha. It was a long summer, and I made all of this photosynthesis, so therefore I have all these acorns to drop. So then I'm going to have all these acorns that they're producing. And it's going to continue growing. And then you're going to go into the fall, and that's when the seeds drop so that the squirrels can plant them. And then we have new trees for the next season. But also, all the leaves drop, which allows for the organic material to fall down and re-nourish the roots and provide new life and nutrients so that the tree can be stronger the next year. And then in the winter, we think, well, there's nothing, trees don't do anything. They just sleep. They just go to sleep. Well, in the wintertime, the roots continue to grow even though the branches don't grow. And so what that does is it creates a firmer base, a greater source of reach, so that in the springtime, it can allow for that rapid growth during the flowering season. But also, it kills all these pests and diseases that interweave its way into the bark of the tree and kill the trees off. And so it's really a defense mechanism in the wintertime that allows the tree to grow stronger for the next cycle. You see this? There isn't a good season for the tree. All the seasons are good seasons. But you could probably make an argument that there's a problem with every one of the earth seasons. Summer's too hot. Spring's too windy. Winter, why do we have winter? It's Texas. It should never be cold here, right? We have a complaint about something if we wanted to. But not every season is the same. Not every season is our favorite. Yet every season has a redeeming purpose. Listen to me today. That Jesus wants to be your redemption. Today, he wants to be your redemption. He wants to assign meaning and value and life to the season that you're in, even if it's unpleasant or even if it's pleasant. He wants to become your strength. He wants to become your contentment. Here's my call for you today, folks. That you would let Jesus give meaning to your season. That you would let Jesus give meaning to your season. You're not asking this season to give meaning to itself. You're not asking anybody else to convince you that the season is good. You're letting Jesus say, this season can be good because I am in it, because I am the Redeemer, because I am with you, and because whatever difficult and unpleasantness that is existing in your life right now, I am here. And I will show you how we can call it good. Let Jesus transform your resentment into contentment. Let Jesus transform you. That's what it means for us to follow Jesus, folks. That we have to understand that following Jesus isn't just an activity that we do, but it's something we allow him to do in us. That we are to be transformed, that we are to be made into his image. And all that really requires of us is a surrender, a yielding that says, I don't want to live this way that I am trying to live, this life that I was born into. I want you to come within me and to change the way that I think, to change the way that I believe, change the way that I act as a result. And we become different kinds of people than we were before. Not because we try really hard, not because we do the right things or say the right things. Those things are simply the fruit from the tree. Our source is Jesus. And today, my call to you is you let him transform you. And in doing so, you will find that your contentment emerges and replaces the resentment, the anger, the bitterness, the entitlement. And we can find that we don't have to constantly looking for the next season, hoping that things were going to be better on the other side, that they can be good right now, simply because Jesus is with us. Jesus wants to be with you today. He wants to be right there with you in your season. In fact, I believe that he always has been. It's up to you to receive him today. So here, how does this happen? How do we facilitate this? Let me help you understand what your response is. There's really a kind of like a three-part response that I have for you. First is that you would admit your need for redemption. And that's an internal admittance. You simply would say, I am wayward. I have rebelled. I've tried to do this my own way and live my own life. And I have sin in my life that I don't want to rule me anymore. So I admit today that I need your redemption, Jesus. This is something that you would say internally within yourself. It's a prayer that you would pray. The second part is that you would believe that Jesus has come to bring that redemption. That redemption comes from no one but Jesus. There's no other source. There's no other avenue that we can't turn to our own ways. We can't turn to any other promises out there, that it comes from Jesus. And that we say, Jesus, that I believe that you are the source of the redemption and you alone. And then the third thing is that we would commit to depend on him for strength. Commit yourself to depend on him for strength. That you make a commitment to yourself and to the Lord and say, today, moving forward, I'm committing to follow you, Jesus. That you are going to be my source of strength. When I encounter that negative influence in my life, you are going to be my strength, and I'm going to find joy. I'm going to find peace. In this season that's coming upon me right now that I'm dreading, God, you are going to stand with me, and you're going to walk me through it every step of the way. That's when we pray like the Lord goes before us. He stands beside us. He's behind us. He is covering us in all directions because he is our strength. That we are declaring that he is our strength, and we are making a commitment that I'm going nowhere without you, Jesus. You are my source, and I depend on you. So I'm going to invite you to respond today. I want to pray for you, but I'm going to give you a moment. I like to do this. I like to just give you a few seconds of silence where I'm not talking and interrupting your time with Jesus. I'm going to give you just a few seconds, and I want to give you the opportunity. You can leave this up on the screen. And let this be your prompted response today, that you would admit your need for redemption. You would believe that Jesus has come to bring that redemption to you, and that you would commit yourself to depend on him for your strength today. I'll give you a few seconds. God, I thank you that you are the Redeemer. That you not only redeem the season, you know the next one. And you prepare us for the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And what you're doing in us now is not in vanity. It's not just to get us through, God, but it's to prepare us for something. And we receive from you today the redemption to make us new, because we know that you have good things in store for those who love you. God, I pray for those who are here today, that you would bless them in their season. You know what's in their heart. If they're embittered, if they're angry, if they're disappointed, if they're cynical. God, I pray that you would bring contentment to their life, that you would disrupt the resentment that has ruled their day-to-day living, and teach them peace. What peace looks like, what it feels like, and the fruit that comes of living a life of contentment. God, I pray for those who are here today who are making a decision to commit to you, that are casting off the alternative and turning to you, Jesus. Bless them today. If you're here today and the Lord has been working in your life and he has been doing something within you, and you want to take a step and respond to him and make this real for your future, we just want to know about it so we can come along and partner with you. And there's a couple different ways you can do that to let us know, just so that we can partner with you and pray with you. You can come talk to one of our staff, our team that works up at the front here, or you could take that card in the seat back in front of you, and there's just a questionnaire that says, are you responding to the gospel? Are you ready to be baptized? There's a little note section in there too, and you can just let us know how we can come alongside you and pray for you, and that we can celebrate what God's doing in you step by step. It's not an overnight thing. It's not like a snap of a finger. The idea of sanctification, of walking with Jesus, is something that is instant, but it is also continuous. something that he does in our life right here and now, but it's something that he continues to do step by step. And then we have to live it out with each experience. Each season that we pass through, we have to learn contentment in that. Do you think Paul just learned it one time? He learned how to be content with everything. He learned how to do it in prison. He had learned how to be content on a full stomach. He learned how to be content on an empty stomach. It's something that we learn how to depend on Jesus in every circumstance and in every season. And no matter what you're at today, Jesus is going to meet you here today, right now. He's going to provide you with peace in this moment. But as you commit yourself to him, and as you walk this out in the community of other believers in his church, you will learn what contentment looks like in the challenging seasons to come. And that you'll be able to have the peace that passes all understanding. That you'll be able to release control of not having to know what the future is. And understand that peace can live with you in all circumstances. May the Lord bless you today as you respond. I'm going to give you one final commissioning and bless you as you go. May the discipleship of Jesus inhabit your life richly. May the light of his gospel shine through you brightly. May the world around you encounter him sincerely, and may his faithfulness bless you abundantly. Amen. Thanks for tuning in and listening to today's sermon. We would love to continue to minister to you. If you would like someone to reach out with you, just let us know. You can find us on Facebook, on Instagram, or you can email us at team@lifelinedenton.com. Look forward to see you soon. Bye.